продовжимо роботу.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We continue our working day, and now with the topic on reforms in Ukraine, current progress and mechanism of recovery. Andrius Kubilius, former Prime Minister of Lithuania and the leader of the Homeland Union and Lithuanian Christian Democrats Party.
You'll ask in Russian, I will answer. So really it's a privilege for me again to be here on this podium. I was here a few weeks ago, and really privilege is to speak to you about what we have seen and what we are trying to assist Ukraine in. So this time I came with Martin Center. I would like just very briefly to say a few words. Martin Center is a think tank of European People's Party. European People's Party is a community of European conservative and Christian Democrat parties, which is the biggest one in Europe. So our task was, first of all, to speak in Dnipropetrovsk to local, regional business people, community leaders, and media about European reforms and how we did our reforms, what is our experience. And also we did the same here in Kiev, speaking with different audiences, different expert groups, members of parliament, group of reanimation package of reforms. I will just try to say a few words about my impressions on how successful is Ukrainian government and Ukraine in implementation of very much needed reforms. From my experience, personal experience, I was 2 times Prime Minister in Lithuania, and on both occasions Prime Minister during the crisis, so I know very well from my own practice that in order to make reforms, you need to have several ingredients. One is you need to have deep economical crisis, you have it. Second, you need to have a good team in the government, and during previous meetings I had the possibility to meet different representatives of the government, and I would say that I consider that you have really very professional and very good team to make all the reforms. In some way, I was even envying what kind of people you have, what quality of people you have in your cabinet. And the last point, what you need to have, it's also some kind of political priorities. What kind of reforms you need to implement as quickly as possible. So from that point of view, I see some progress, but still perhaps your government, your team, political leadership needs to make a little bit of additional work to have very clear priorities. In order really to have possibility to communicate both domestically with the parliament, with Ukrainian people, and also with an outside world about the progress of reforms which Ukrainian government is ready to achieve. From what we learned during those days, I would say that you are doing really good progress in several areas, which I can name from my own knowledge. And I think that that progress shows what potential you have in your cabinet to make really very much needed reforms. 3 areas. One is liberalization of energy prices, which is very much needed. We did it back in 1992. Of course, you need to look for how to have some kind of social assistance instruments in order to assist people who can suffer because of their low income. We did it also. And such kind of reform, liberalization of energy prices, also would allow you to achieve the major goal in consolidation of your fiscal position in the budget. You have really big trouble with a very large deficit, around of 12% of GDP in your budget, and it's not sustainable. From our own experience, it's very clear. But subsidies to energy prices, which still you have, and you are planning to abolish, it consists around of 6 or 7% of GDP in your budget. So if you will abolish those subsidies, you will not only create a real market in energy field, which will diminish possibilities for different corruption practices, but also you will achieve really very remarkable result in consolidation of your fiscal position. Second area where I see really good progress is reforms in police. What we have seen with speaking with your Vice Minister of Interior, this young Georgian smart lady, really it looked like very important and very strong and very effective project how to reform your police forces starting from Kiev in June. So that's again very strong progress. And the last point which I would mention is of course reforms in your state-owned enterprises, which Minister of Economy Aivaras Abramavičius, we are proud that he is of Lithuanian origin and making really very important reforms. He is ready to start those reforms. And from our own experience, those reforms are really very important and for such countries like Lithuania and Ukraine. So, as I said, you are on a good progress. And I know and I see a lot of expectations that reforms should be made more rapidly. Ordinary people and politicians in the parliament, they are demanding from the government in a very strong way, much more radical reforms as quickly as possible. That's a good demand, but again, everybody needs to understand that practical implementation of reforms demands some time, some patience, and my advice is very simple. Don't become too much frustrated if you will see that some reforms are going a little bit more slowly than everybody was expecting at the beginning. My own example is very simple. Back in 1990, 25 years ago, we shall celebrate very soon our 25th anniversary of our independence on 11th of March. At that time, I was a young politician, executive secretary of our Popular Front. And 1 month after we declared independence, I was loudly dreaming that during next year we shall achieve the level of Sweden. So that is still not the case. We are very happy that we overcame our neighbors Estonians. Sweden is still a little bit in a distance, but we are moving into that direction. So that is my very simple and very clear message. You are doing a great job. Of course, to make reforms while war is going on, in the territory of the country is much more difficult. But I really would make really rather positive evaluation of how you are moving with your reforms, and we are ready to assist in all the possible ways. With implementation of the very much needed reforms for Ukraine, because we consider Ukraine as an European country, and I am dreaming that I will be able to see the moment when Ukraine will join our community in the European Union. So I hope to see it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kubilius.
Do you have any questions to the speaker? I have such a question. In Ukraine, we could not but hear that from people who you met. We have a big problem with the personnel. There are people educated, there are people who are ready to join the government, but the middle link still lacks highly professional people, because people do not want to go to civil service for the salaries they have. The top positions are already occupied, but those people who go to the position of a deputy minister can afford to be volunteers, but unfortunately those people who would run for the position of a head of a department, they do not agree to these salaries. Did you have such a problem in your country, and how soon did you address this problem, and what would be your advice? How should Ukraine deal with this situation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Of course, as I said, my own evaluation of the of the highest level of your team in the cabinet is really very positive. Of course, those young people who came to serve as ministers, they came like volunteers. Because when you have the salary of minister 300 euros, so perhaps you cannot imagine that you can hire really high-level professional with such a salary. And when the salary, average salary in the ministries of, let's say, public servants is somewhere around of 150 euros, again, this is really a systemic problem. We went through, of course, we understood also that we need to pay at least the market salary, for professionals in order to have good quality of people inside of the government. But I would advise you also, I understand that the economical situation is really not a good one, and I understand that people really, they do not like to see big salaries, for bureaucrats, and it's a very popular topic always, that, everybody should serve, his country almost without a salary. But I would advise you to look to the experience of our Georgian friends. Recently I was in Tbilisi, and I was really very positively surprised. Their economical situation perhaps is very similar to Ukrainian. I don't know real numbers, but GDP per capita perhaps is not higher than you have here in Ukraine. But in the ministries, for example, the head of department gets a salary which is around of 1,500 euros, which is almost at the level of Lithuanian salaries. So they managed to achieve such a result.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any more questions? Yep, sure.
Laba diena, aš Diana Zubko, Silnіші разом, Stronger Together.
Laba diena.
I have a question concerning the international support of the European community, first of all, of the international partners of Ukraine. Yesterday we were able to see many representatives of different countries here in Kyiv and Maidan. And what could you say about the support of reforms to Ukraine from these leaders, from the leader of Lithuanian country and from the EU representatives as well?
Well, of course, support is really very high, and especially in Lithuania, everybody feels a lot of sympathy and solidarity with Ukrainian people and Ukraine itself. Of course, the question is how to stop this military aggression which we see in the east of Ukraine. And so 1 year went through, and still we see that in the Western community there is some lack of understanding how to deal and how to behave and what to do in order to stop this aggression. I am coming to a very simple conclusions. What is needed, and we shall try to do our best using also our relationship with EPP parties and different capitals. First of all, what is very much needed is a very simple thing. It's a need of change of political vocabulary in Western community. We cannot speak about what is happening in Ukraine using the words which are very beneficial to Mr. Putin, speaking about Ukrainian crisis or crisis in Ukraine. This is total mistake. This is misleading vocabulary. We need to speak very simple truth. What we see here, this is a Putin's war. This is a war which was organized, initiated, and supported and developed by Mr. Putin himself. And when we shall start to use such a wording, then we shall understand in a very simple way that Ukraine itself is not able, because of physical differences in between of Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine itself cannot stop this aggression, which is aggression of Mr. Putin. Then it will become very clear that Western community has a special responsibility on its shoulders to do everything what is needed to convince Mr. Putin not to speak anymore about peace and stability, but to do very simple action, to stop his personal aggression in Ukraine. There are only two alternatives. what Western community can do. One is to give needed weaponry to Ukrainian army. If, well, that yes, I understand some leaders in Europe which hesitate to move into that direction because of possible escalation of military, let's say, war in Ukraine. So then here is a next option, again, very, very clear, much more radical economical sanctions, which would convince Mr. Putin to stop his aggression immediately. Those sanctions which were implemented during the year, they are not bad, they are quite good, but they have impact only in a longer term future. So removal of Russian financial system from transnational system of financial transactions, so-called SWIFT system, that would be such kind of economical sanction, which I hope would convince Mr. Putin to stop his military aggression in Ukraine. When we shall start to use very proper words, that this is a Putin's war, then perhaps for us it will be also very, very easy to start to compare Putin's war with another war which we know in European history, Milosevic war. And then we shall perhaps remember where Milosevic ended his war. He ended in Hague Tribunal, and that is what we need to speak about.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions? Then the last question from me. Is there any Lithuanian lesson or advice Ukraine should take in reforming country? I mean,
I would advise to have one lesson, which we were lucky to have one advantage from the very beginning, and that was an advantage which was given for us from EU side. It's a promise of EU membership, which we got quite early, first of all unofficially, then officially, and that was keeping us on the track of reforms. We are not smarter people than Ukrainians. We are sometimes, we consider ourselves, we are joking that we are Italians of the North, we are Catholics, we are very emotional, we are, shifting ourselves from the left to the right, doing all the possible political, battles and mistakes. What was keeping us on track, that was really this, this promise and future of becoming members of EU. So what is very much needed for Ukraine to be successful with the reforms as quickly as possible, the best way during Riga summit, which will happen in May, to have a very clear political statement from EU side that if Ukraine will reform itself, if Ukraine will match European membership criteria, Ukraine will have possibility to join EU. And that's what I hope to see.
okay. Thank you very much then.
Thanks a lot.
Дякую, колеги. Наступний брифінг о
The next briefing is at 12:30.